I want to take a few minutes to discuss the dishonesty we often see from the pro-gun crowd. I want to begin this video by asserting that I am not suggesting that we should repeal the Second Amendment. I'm also not suggesting that there are no valid arguments from the pro-gun side. Full disclosure, I don't personally like guns, and I won't have any in my house. I believe that's my right, just as it is and should be the other person's right to own a gun for self-defense, provided they have not engaged in activity that should preclude it. This video is not about how we should seize all guns legally owned in the U.S. and melt them down into bookends or doorstops. It's not a suggestion that all people who believe they have the right to be armed are gun nuts. It's simply a challenge of the dishonest rhetoric we seem to only see from the rabid Second Amendment purists. Take this image, for example. This Facebook meme has been shared thousands of times by members of the pro-gun right. To anyone who understands the issue, the dishonesty of it should be patently obvious. But I'm not making this video simply to preach to the choir. I want the pro-gun viewer to understand exactly why this image is dishonest. This falls into the category of a questionable cause fallacy. There's absolutely no reason to presume that the laxity of gun laws in Arizona has anything to do with the stat about gun violence. Another possible cause would be population density. Many studies indicate that the more people we cram into a space, the greater the likelihood for violence. In fact, the likelihood grows exponentially, and Chicago has a population density 4 times that of Phoenix. So even if all things were equal regarding gun restrictions, the gun violence in Chicago should be at a minimum 4 times that of Phoenix. But that's not the only problem here. This image also feeds into a prejudice held by many on the pro-gun right that says unarmed people are more likely to be victims. But there's a problem with this idea as well. Several studies have actually demonstrated that areas with fewer gun restrictions have a higher than average instance of gun crime. One almost has to go out of one's way to find an example to make a contrary argument. That means this image also fits into the category of fallacy known as a biased sample. In fact, the gun violence stats for the state of Arizona, which is where Phoenix is, place it at number 4 on the list of most violent states for guns, while Illinois, the home state of Chicago, is number 36 on that list. Arizona also ranks second in gun-related mortality overall. Additionally, no sourcing is given for the stat provided, and it doesn't seem to jibe with anything I can find anywhere. To me, this suggests that the stat is an outright lie, but I don't have enough info to actually make this declaration. It's just as possible that this stat actually has some basis in reality, as it is with any uncredited stat. On an unrelated note, did you know that 1 in 10 Capuchin monkeys dreams of being a race car driver someday? But let's look at a different image from the pro-gun right. This image is surprisingly forthcoming about the stats it uses, and in fact the study it references is readily available and can be seen here. If we graph the numbers for only the city of Orlando, it looks like this. The trend line tells a very different story than the graphic would suggest. So we wonder, what else was happening in Orlando around that time that could account for these numbers? Well, as it happens, Orlando was chosen as a site for Disney World in 1965. This information became public knowledge in October of that year. One might suppose that this could mean a number of changes in socioeconomic impact, police presence, influx of outside workers, all things which could account for a dramatic spike and/or depression in any number of crime-related activities. To suggest that simply training people to use handguns caused rapists to stop raping for 1 year is simply ludicrous on its face. Ultimately, here's my personal conclusion. If your position is so weak that you have to resort to cherry-picking stats or making them up outright to suit your argument, you don't have a valid argument to begin with. Thank you.
Crawl into bed because I was so finely tuned to a level of fear. I was scared, let's put it that way. I don't need